What happens now? Well, the White House says the Mueller report exonerates President Trump in the Russia probe, but the president isn't in the clear just yet. There are still more than a dozen other investigations and lawsuits looking into the president, his family, his inner circle, and his businesses. Michael Quander reports.
Several committees on the Hill are looking into a laundry list of alleged crimes linked to President Donald Trump. They include Russian efforts to meddle in the U.S. election, fundraising from Trump's inaugural committee, his family foundation, finances, and his business dealings after he took office. Outside of Congress, President Trump is also linked to other ongoing investigations. One of the most well-known cases centers around Trump's longtime friend, Roger Stone, who was locked up in connection to the Mueller investigation earlier this year for witness tampering and lying to Congress. And then there's the ongoing hush money investigations, where New York prosecutors are working to figure out if President Trump had a hand in paying off women for alleged affairs during his 2016 election run. And there are several ongoing lawsuits, like one centered around the Trump Hotel in D.C., claiming constitutional violations for the president benefiting from business dealings with foreign governments.
All right, make sure you turn into WUSA 9 tonight at 10 o'clock. That's because CBS News is going to have an hour-long special on the Mueller report, A Turning Point. That's tonight, 10 o'clock, right here on WUSA 9. And stick around for us here, WUSA 9 News at 11.